All right, let's talk about something huge, a change that's not just coming, it's already here and it's reshaping our world. We're diving into why AI is probably going to replace most jobs. And look, we're not going to just skim the surface with a bunch of hype. We're going to get right into the nuts and bolts of how this whole transformation is actually happening. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. We tend to think about jobs being lost because of some big, dramatic company decision, but that's rarely how it works. The truth is, jobs just vanish. They vanish when technology makes it so ridiculously cheap to automate them that keeping a person in that role stops making any financial sense. And that's exactly where we are right now, standing on that edge. Okay, so to really get what's going on, you need to understand this idea called the competence collapse. This isn't your grandfather's automation, the kind that replaced muscle power on an assembly line. No, AI is a different beast entirely. It's coming for the very core of what we've always thought of as skilled white-collar work. For the longest time, your value at work was all about your ability to say, yeah, I know how to do that. But AI is completely flipping the script. It can handle the how way cheaper, way faster, and at a scale we can barely even comprehend. So now, the real value isn't just in doing the work anymore. It's in deciding what work is worth doing in the first place, and then being the one who's responsible for the final outcome. Look, let's just be totally blunt about this. If your job is basically to be the hands that create the thing, whether that's a report, a piece of code, or a design, you are standing on a trapdoor. The value is moving upwards, and if you don't move with it, you're at risk of becoming a commodity, just like the work you produce. So what does this competence collapse actually look like in the real world? It's not some sci-fi movie with perfect, all-knowing robots. It's something way more subtle and honestly, way more disruptive. It's what we can call the good enough revolution. Just take a look at this comparison, because this really highlights the key. See, AI doesn't have to be perfect to take over a task. It just has to be good enough for what's needed and cheaper than a person. Think about it. A customer service email just needs to solve the customer's problem. A social media graphic just needs to get you to stop scrolling for a second. When you combine good enough with instant, well, you've got a recipe for massive disruption. Now, imagine that good enough and instant combination, but scaled up 1,000,000 times over. This isn't just about saving a few bucks anymore. This is a phase change. It's a fundamental shift in the entire economy. All of a sudden, the cost of getting competent work done drops to near zero, and the whole system changes. And this good enough revolution has a really sneaky consequence. AI isn't coming for your job title, not right away. It's way more insidious than that. It's coming for the tasks that make up your job, picking them off one by one.
So who's right in the middle of this blast radius? Well, if you spend most of your day just moving information around, I'm talking about summarizing meetings, drafting emails, running numbers for a report, writing first drafts, you are at ground zero. AI isn't just knocking on the door, it's already inside with its hands on your keyboard.
And this takeover, it's not a sudden shock. It's a slow, steady climb up a staircase. And you might not even notice it's happening. First, AI is just a cool tool that helps you out. Then, before you know it, it's writing your first drafts. Pretty soon, it's doing most of the work, and your job is just to approve it. And as the AI gets smarter, the number of things it can't handle, the exceptions, gets smaller and smaller. And here's the kicker. Once that AI has climbed the staircase, the old rules just go out the window. A company that used to need 100 people for a department might find it only needs 20, a small team to handle the tricky exceptions and focus on the big picture strategy. This isn't some wild guess. It's just the logical conclusion of automating tasks instead of entire jobs. Okay, so we've painted a pretty intense picture, right? It sounds daunting, but it is not the end of the story. The most important part of this whole conversation is what you, personally, can do about it. So let's switch gears and talk about your playbook for actually thriving in this new world. So let me just ask you this. When the very tasks that have defined our jobs for decades are being turned into commodities, what's the only safe move? It's really tempting to just wait and see what happens, right? But in a world that's changing this fast, standing still is the same thing as moving backward. This is the big one. It's about completely reframing how you see yourself professionally. Stop thinking of yourself by your job title, because that title could become obsolete. Instead, anchor your identity to solving problems in a durable domain, an area like communication or logistics or health. The problems in these fields aren't going anywhere. It's just the tools we use to solve them that are going to change. It all comes down to a simple rule of economics. Value flows to whatever is scarce.
For a long, long time, the scarce thing was the skill to do the work. But with AI making competent work abundant and cheap, that's not the bottleneck anymore. So the million-dollar question is, what's the new scarcity?
This right here, this is your new treasure map. The real value is going to accumulate in the things AI can't easily do. Things like having unique, high-quality data, the messy, hands-on work of actually implementing these systems, making sure the output is true and safe, building trust with other humans, and maybe most importantly, being the person who takes responsibility for the final outcome. An AI can give you an answer, but it can't sign its name to it. That's where you come in. Okay, so how do you actually do this? What's the new operating system for your career? In this era, the winners aren't going to be the people with the longest resumes. They're going to be the people with the fastest learning loops. Your career needs to become this constant cycle. Learn the fundamentals of your domain deeply. Use that knowledge to build and ship real projects. Get fast feedback from the real world and then iterate. Do it all over again, but better. If you're not creating, you're falling behind. So all of this, it brings us to a fork in the road. It forces every single one of us to make a really important choice. As intelligence itself becomes a commodity, two very different roles are emerging. You can be a consumer of AI, or you can be an architect of it. The consumer just sees AI as another tool, another app. They're basically trying to compete against a factory that's getting faster and cheaper every single day. The architect, though, they're not trying to outrun the factory. They're the one holding the blueprints. They build the systems, they own the outcomes, they control the factory. That's the choice that's right in front of all of us.
So let's end with this thought. This isn't about fighting technology or trying to hold on to the past. That's a losing battle. The only real way to win in this new era is to build with the machine. Be the person who guides these powerful new tools with your judgment, your creativity, and your sense of responsibility. Don't just let the future happen to you. Be the one who builds it.